when I was in grad school years ago, and like it doesn't seem like I was anywhere years ago, but grad school was literally years ago. And I was there in library science, and there was this girl who I really liked. Her name was Laura, and we worked at Barnes and Noble together. And I didn't notice her at first, and then I kind of did. She had like this red pea coat, and I was like, "Wow, I like it. I dig it." And then we liked Harry Potter. We had like similar interests, but I could never tell her. I was always like fumbling. I could never really tell her that I liked her. So I did other things, like I would get like a member card and put it in her name, so she wouldn't have to worry about getting a member card for the day. I would do like very small things like that, because some people, they can like walk up to a girl and they can go out. But for me, it's like an 8 to 10 month process. So that was the start. Giving member cards was the start of the process, and then we had like Harry Potter, other things in common. And then there was this really embarrassing night where we were doing like a Twilight release party, and I had to be Edward in like the pictures because I was the only guy, and I was like, "You guys, I am an ugly. Like, come on, this is not like maybe if it was like Uglies by Scott Westerfeld, but no, this is not." So it was totally embarrassing, and all these girls like took pictures with me, and I have this very like solemn, like non-sparkly vampire look on my face. But she was there too, and she was another character. We kind of bonded over our terrible Twihard characters. And I started talking a little more and a little more, and then we had a couple classes together. We took an intellectual freedom class together, which was really cool, and it helped me learn that people in Texas banned Moby Dick because there were no whales in Texas, so they felt that it was unnecessary to have any copies of Moby Dick in Texas. And that was the same reason they banned the Lorax for boo environment. But anyways, so that's what we found out in these classes, and I really just I kept liking her. I kept helping her out with her papers, and I kept trying to talk to her, but I could never really tell her how I felt. And then finally, I got drunk one night, which always happens. That's how a lot of these stories start, because we had this really ingenious thing at the library science school. We had all the student fees, the bullshit activity fees nobody uses. We took those for our department, and we did 2 happy hours a year at a bar across the street, and we called it networking, and the school bought it. So we had 2 happy hours a semester with $800 bar tabs. So we were about 380, 400 deep in the bar tab, and I'm like, you know what? About this time, I'm ready, So I talked to her, and I invited her to my birthday party. Good start, right? A lot of people around. It's not, we're cash. So that's where we're at. And now I take her, we're at the birthday party, and she's like the last one to get there. So I'm totally sweating it out all night. She's like 15 minutes late, but it is so worth it to see her. And I stand up, and I hit my knee on the table, and I'm like, ah. And she comes, and she sits down like next to me, and there's all these pictures of me like next to her, just trying to kind of like be like next to her. And she's cool with it. And it was a really great birthday. And she was cool enough with it where we actually went to a movie the next week by ourselves, which is exciting. Even though I'm in grad school, this is a big step. That movie was WALL-E. Have y'all ever seen WALL-E? Of course you have. So that day, it wasn't a good day because I had like a toothache. I'd never had a toothache before. So I was like, oh my God, it's my first date. I'm going to be nervous as it is. I have to cure this toothache. And so I went to the drugstore, and I did not feel like getting like, the high-end stuff. So I got like the Kroger's brand, toothache medication, the liquid stuff. But I never read the directions of the Kroger's liquid brand toothache stuff, and I thought it was like a shot instead of like, not a little dab will do ya. So I chugged it, and like I was like swishing it like mouthwash, thinking it was like mouthwash, and it would work. So that was 2 hours before I picked her up. And I'm like, hey, my mouth feels a little funny, like I just had a shot of Novocaine. And that's where we're at. And I pick her up, and I'm like, hey, and like I'm not even realizing there's drool coming down the side of my face. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, oh, you have a little something on your face. And I was like, oh, what? And she's like, well, you might want to go to the bathroom real quick, around her apartment. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I go to the bathroom, and there's drool coming down both sides of my face, like uncontrollable. And I'm like, what do I do? So I look all through her medicine cabinet, which is something, I shouldn't be doing anyways. And she had like the small Band-Aids. So I put a small Band-Aid on the side of my mouth, and I put one on the side of my other mouth, and that is the only way I could have stopped the drool. And then I took her to the restaurant. so, so we're going into this restaurant, and my mouth is like, I can't eat anything anyway, so I try to drink a beer, and that's not working. You know, the Band-Aid's wet, it's coming off. And she's like, still trying to be sweet. She's still trying to be happy with me, you know. And I'm like, this night's probably not going to go well, but we got Wally, you know. It's a dark theater. She can't be embarrassed about that. So I'm walking to the bathroom, and I'm trying to, you know, and I like literally, I do that thing where the table jumps out at you. I just hit the side of this huge like party table, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And like the Band-Aids, and they're like, oh, somebody's taking a special person out. How sweet. So I try and fix it, and she had brought the Band-Aids in case this would happen. So I fixed it with 2 additional Band-Aids on the sides of my mouth, and we went to see Wally, and I paid because I'm a nice guy. And then, like, Wally gets to me, you know, because I'm like, oh, he's, like, alone, and so am I, and this is how I feel. Even after this night, I'll probably be alone again, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, at the end of the movie, like, my mouth has still not gone down. I literally had chugged this whole thing, and, like, and plus the fact that I'm, like, 86 pounds probably didn't help. So at the end of the movie, y'all have seen Wall-E, right? You know, and is the robot alive or dead? Robot, right? Is the robot alive or dead? And I'm like crying, and I'm like, this is like Short Circuit, but I can't like really talk, so it's like, it comes out, this is like Short Circuit, and she's like, yes, it is. She's like agreeing with me, and I'm like, you're so sweet. And then she actually even lets me hug her when I took her home, which is more than I could have hoped for. And 2 months, she let me go out with her for 2 months, and that's really how it felt. But yeah, we went out for 2 months, and then she went back to her old boyfriend, and it was okay with me. You know, I was like, wow, you know, because most people would have been like, after dinner, I'm out. I mean, she gave me 2 months to redeem myself. I felt really good about that. And I was like, you know, I'm happy for you. You're with your boyfriend. I'm happy for you. And that Halloween was the clincher. I met her at a Halloween party. Like, I didn't know she was going to be there. And my costume was Max from Where the Wild Things Are. And I was so excited to see her. And she was with her boyfriend. And I don't know if maybe she just hadn't understood that, yeah, I was, you know, supportive of them. And I came running up. I was already drunk. I'm like, hey! And she did the thing, like, where she's trying backing in the corner. And she's like, what do I do? So she, like, escaped with her boyfriend. And I was like, oh, she doesn't understand how I feel. So I ran after them. And this bar is right by City Hall. And so I'm running like past, and I'm running, and I think they're going to the next bar, and I'm running past City Hall, and they're going to the next bar in their car like normal people. And I stop there in my Max from Where the Wild Things Are costume, and I'm like this. I have my hands on my knees. I'm panting, and it looks to the cops at City Hall like I'm publicly urinating on City Hall. Because I'm just like this, and they come up from behind me. They're like, "Sir, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm panting." And then, you know, they're like, "Oh, we thought we were public urinating. We're about to arrest you." And I was like, "You know what? That's a sign. I'm done with this girl. I'm gonna move on." But I really still do appreciate her. So now she knows. Thank you.